Hello and welcome to another episode of Historic Hindsight. I'm John, that's Tom, and today we're talking about maple syrup.
That's right, Johnny, maple syrup. And what happens if the maple syrup Canadians don't like the borders that were drawn after the American Revolution and decide that some land is theirs, even though it's clearly stated as ours in treaties? And it's one of the many land disputes that we get to go with, Johnny. This time, the land dispute, the group that we were disputing over, they said, screw you, we're not a part of anybody, we're going to form our own country.
Oh, so they said nobody gets us.
Nobody gets us, yeah.
And
so
we're going to be our own entity.
Their own entity. It's the Republic of Indian Stream. It's a time when the colonists got mad that both Canadian and Americans were screwing them, so they formed their own country, which existed from July 9th, 1832 until August 5th, 1835. So almost beat the Confederacy, but not quite. We're close.
Yeah, but I mean, half the length of the Confederacy, so not bad.
Yeah. Once again, this is a part of one of many border disputes between Canada and the United States. This time it was over a section of land separating Quebec. There's good fishing in Quebec.
Oh, wonderful fishing in Quebec.
From New Hampshire. Not really sure why anybody would want to be a part of either Quebec or New Hampshire, but that's probably why they split off and formed their own.
They didn't. Nobody did want to.
So, a little bit of background. Why is there a dispute over this territory? So the trouble started right off the top with land grants that were being sold by the Abenaki tribe. That's Abenaki. I'm horrible with
Abenaki?
Abenaki tribes. So that tribe is one tribe, but there's like a separatist group in that tribe, and they're both selling land to any colonizers who want to come over, selling off this land. One group's giving them land tracts. The other group, who's not officially in charge, says, hey, no, they're the fake ones. We're in charge, and are also selling land tracts.
Nice. So buy it from them instead. You bought fake land. You have to buy the real land from us. I get it. Yeah, no, this is brilliant.
It's to the same
You're just getting double paid for the land.
There are several speculating land companies that buy in on this land, a lot of it, again, being the exact same land that's sold twice by two different groups. This all takes place before the Revolutionary War starts. So after the Revolutionary War, both land speculating companies own the territory and begin selling off tracts of land to settlers, often overlapping the same territory.
Great.
So you got guys
show up
hey, no, this is mine.
I've got journey.
Yeah.
You show up, long journey, you're looking to settle the land that you agreed upon and bought, and somebody else is already there, and they have land rights to it as well.
Yes, exactly.
It's a problem.
Both of these speculating companies wind up realizing that they're in a little bit of difficulty here, and by 1812, they have both wound up basically going bankrupt. And you get a Kmart buying out Sears situation where both companies are basically belly up, so they're like, we'll join forces, and that'll do it.
Perfect.
And then that clarifies.
No way we could fail now.
Yeah, and that clarifies all the land double ownership issues. They all get that all squared away. But that's only the private ownership land, Johnny, because you still got the government, like whose entity are we a part of?
Whose laws do we have to follow, essentially, right?
So the government oversight is confused because the Treaty of Paris in 1873 sets the northwest head of the Connecticut River as a boundary between Quebec and New Hampshire. So the whole idea is the northwest head.
Should be nice and clear.
Whatever the northernmost river that feeds into the Connecticut River, that's the land. That's the land barrier.
Yeah.
And of course,
it makes it easy when you have a river because you're just like, that side's yours, this side's ours. That's how we're going to do it.
The problem is there are 3 tributaries that feed into the Connecticut River. Which one's the boundary? It says northernmost, so clearly there's got to be a winner to that whole that northernmost dispute. England is going to claim that everything up until the southeasternmost branch of the chain of the Connecticut Lakes is theirs, which does not at all go
not
by
what they said.
Yeah, they said that's southeastern part. No, they said
you're drawing a new line. You're just making up a new one here.
And then the Americans are like, no, it says the treaty clearly says the northern one, so that's definitely the tippity top.
Yeah, closest to the syrup.
But basically, you round up with this chunk of territory that both sides are claiming, which, by the way, only 400 people at this point in time live in this territory. So it's not a booming metropolis or anything along
No,
those
but it's
lines.
on its way to being one, perhaps, potentially, according to the land investors. And yeah, they have a big problem if it's unincorporated territory, I guess.
Now, the true territory line, what it is today, is the Howells Stream, which is what the treaty entirely meant
In the original writing?
in the original writing.
Okay.
And then, of course, that's where the territory mark is today. If you're curious, I'll put a map up there. Both sides wind up sending tax collectors into this territory, claiming it's their land. So Canadians send their tax collectors down, and the Americans send their tax collectors up. And now the citizens, you can imagine,
Shucks. Now
are
they're getting
rightfully
double taxed.
pissed. 'Cause they're
Well, I
paying
mean, that's
double
fine.
tax.
Nobody's ever fought a war over taxes, so
Nope.
this'll be fine.
In June of 1832, they get so fed up with the double taxation that they begin forming an election board with everyone in agreement that they didn't want to be a part of the Canadian government, and they also didn't want to be a part of New Hampshire.
Well, yeah, I mean, they just have two people fighting over him and taxing him and doing shit. Like, I wouldn't want to be a part of either one of those groups either.
Right? And by Canadian government, it's the English crown at this point. It's still,
Yeah.
Canada's not its own entity. If you all, like, little YouTubers are like, he said Canada, but that's not it. Whatever. Screw off.
What is currently modern day Canada?
Now,
Say that.
like I said, in June of 1832, they began forming their own election boards. By the end of July, on July 9th, 1832, they vote to become an independent nation from both nations until those two entities could decide who they actually belong to. Because, look, we're not paying taxes to both. We're going to form our own thing.
So let them figure it out. You all figure out what's going on, and until then, we're just not paying anybody anything.
Yeah, exactly. They formed their own constitution with their
Sense.
own functioning government, and the entry, the beginning of their constitution says, and I quote here, "The people inhabiting the territory formerly called Indian Stream Territory do hereby solemnly and mutually agree with each other to form themselves into a body politic by the name of Indian Stream, and in that capacity to exercise all powers of free, sovereign, and independent state, so far as it relates to our own internal government, till such a time as we can ascertain to what government we properly belong." Clearly, this isn't like an ultra-revolutionary. They're not going to take up arms and go fight either people.
Yeah.
They're just like, we're our own thing until you two can figure out, until mommy and daddy can figure out who we're going to go live with.
Yeah, this is a custody battle, and if it were actually Canada and the United States, we would both be asking England to settle it for us as a judge, but it's England at the time in the United States.
yeah.
And
Probably should have
who do we?
gotten,
Who's going to decide? Is it going to court?
So the Declaration of Independence actually doesn't spark a war for a change. And Canada just kind of ignores it and continues to send their tax collectors down there. And the Americans at first are like, yeah, sure, fine. You're your own thing. We'll recognize that. We'll stop messing with you. But then they find out that the Canadians are sending tax collectors still into that territory, and they're like, we can't have that.
Can't have that. No, because then they're essentially just, if they pay those taxes, now they're saying, well, we're Canadian.
Exactly. So they sent their own tax collectors up there. This leads to the Coos County Sheriff to request, basically what winds up happening is after both tax collectors get sent back in, you've got a group of populations where it's split. Some of them are like, hey, why not we just screw it, we'll be a part of the Quebecs. Then the other part are like, nah, screw it, we'll be a part of New Hampshire. Or at least the United States. Let me rephrase that. They wanted to be a part of the United States. Nobody really wanted to be a part of New Hampshire in here.
Yeah.
They wanted to be their own state. The Coos County Sheriff is actually going to wind up requesting militia assistance on July 30th, 1835, because there are legal matters that are kicking off in the area that need governmental oversight. People aren't paying taxes. People aren't paying fees that are due. Like, I went to the grocery store and I didn't pay the teller, and now I got to get, who's got judicial oversight?
Yeah. Who's going to go and punish that person or make sure that they pay?
So the Coos County Sheriff actually requests militia assistance from the United States. 2 companies of infantry from Colebrook and Stewartstown meet on the outskirts of the territory. Indian Stream, they respond by sending a letter to the British officials in Sherbrooke asking for aid. Like, hey, look, we got American military sitting right on a border. Can we get some Canadian or English military to sit on the other side of the border so that at least we don't get occupied by force, which we don't really want that to happen?
No. Yeah, that makes sense.
But on August 4th, the sheriff meets with between 30 and 40 members of the Republic of Indian Stream and says, hey, listen, you see that militia over there? you're going to go ahead and join New Hampshire or be occupied by that militia. The Indian Stream guys are like, we don't have a military. There's only like 400 of us. We are
Did not
heavily
see this coming.
outnumbered.
This is unfortunate.
And so they write a letter to the Canadian officials or the British officials in Canada and say, hey, listen, we asked for your aid. You did not give us aid, so we are now New Hampshirean, I guess.
All right. Yeah. Americans, let's go.
Now, this annexation doesn't actually end this land dispute because, of course not. Why would it? There's also the pro-Canadian forces that are still living in that territory in Indian Stream.
What, like 70 of them? Move them out. Like what? Like they should have just taken a vote from the get-go.
So that's what they should have done, yeah. After the annexation, a man by the name of Blanchard agrees to be the new sheriff in the area. In October, he is going to be sent to arrest John Tyler, who's a pro-Canadian, for unpaid hardware debts. A group of his pro-Canadian neighbors wind up freeing him, like on his way to the jail. Like they intercept him and then they free him. And John Tyler goes to the British magistrate and says, hey, Blanchard arrested me in Quebec, in Canadian territory. And that's some bullshit because that's an American going on foreign soil to arrest me. So the Canadian which, by the way, he lied, flat out lied. He was clearly in American territory.
But they would have had they had the opportunity.
Yes, and so
it's still okay.
So the Crown sends, with their magistrate, they send somebody down to arrest Blanchard for crossing into Canadian territory to arrest a Canadian citizen, and then now they're going to send somebody down into America to arrest an American citizen.
And this is why we have extradition laws and stuff now?
Probably. So this leads, they issue a warrant. They go off to arrest Blanchard. This leads to a pro-U.S. group freeing Blanchard on the way. But that's not good enough for them. They wind up going to the magistrate's house and kidnapping him.
Oh, no.
And bringing him back.
They did a lot of this type of shit back then. Like, that's what we're missing today. Not enough kidnapping and tarring and feathering of top politicians and stuff. Like, really dropped the ball.
They capture the magistrate. They club him with the side of a saber and take him to Vermont for reasons. The local officials in Vermont are like, get him the fuck out of here.
What are we going to do with this?
An international war over a small chunk of land in New Hampshire.
How big? Do you know how large the swath of land is? Is it like several hundred acres? Is it?
Yeah, it's not all that big. I'll put up actual square footage here, but it's not a large territory of land. Okay. So you're like, get them the hell out of here. You got to take them back. The aftermath is that the New Hampshire militia is going to wind up occupying Indian Stream from February 18th, 1836 until April 2nd because, safety. We don't want the Canadians coming. And we have reason to believe that the Canadians are coming because we captured one of the
Because we gave them reason to come. We poked the bear.
No, the magistrate is released after the Vermont local officials are like, get him the fuck out of here. He is released, let to go back up to Canada. The Indian Stream community is like, fine, we're going to sign another proclamation saying that we belong to New Hampshire since we're being occupied. We'll sign it. We don't really want to belong to New Hampshire, but what we're going to do is military.
But at least we'll know we'll be paying taxes to a singular entity. We'll know where we belong. We'll have a little place. It'll be great.
This incident sparks international outrage, obviously, from Britain, who was like, hey, President Jackson, what the fuck are you going to do about this? You had your people come to our territory and take a member of the legal system. You can't do that. It's like going and kidnapping a judge. You can't do that.
Yeah, stop him.
And Jackson's like, what the fuck is going on all over Indian Stream? Like, who like...
I have other things to deal with here. This is not...
I don't know if you've known this or not, but I'm trying to get rid of all the Indians in this territory. I don't have time to deal with...
and other priorities.
A land dispute over hardware debt. By July 1837, Britain was like, listen, we'll drop all charges of assault against the member of the court, but the land's still ours. To which the U.S. says, no, that's not how it works. Read the treaty that we signed. Remember when we beat England? Remember that? Like, we won this territory fair and square. By 1840, the citizens of Indian Stream wind up petitioning Pittsburgh, not the Pittsburgh you're thinking of,
Oh.
Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, to incorporate them into their town. And finally, in 1842, the land dispute is going to be resolved not by any action of any member of Indian Stream, not by any action of the Canadian or the U.S. government in that territory, the Quebecs or the New Hampshireans, none of that shit. What winds up actually doing it is that there is a little bit of a war that kicks off, which is going to be another episode that we have on this whole like land dispute thing called the Arstook War, which the resulting treaty thereof resolves all the remaining land disputes, at least on the eastern side of the Canadian-U.S.
They just say, all right, we're taking care of all of it. After this war, we're going to sit down, figure it out,
Yeah.
draw lines in the sand. And
Yeah, they're like, we're going to very, very clearly clarify all these land disputes. But it doesn't officially solve all of them because there's still that whole pig war thing that kicks off way out in the west, which we already did an episode on that one. So
that's far away from here. They did their best. It's a long border. You can't.
Yeah, you can't blame them for that.
Fix it all.
Yeah. So yeah, apparently we had multiple Canadian-American almost war battles over territory that seemingly nobody really wanted except for taxation purposes.
That's it for this week in Historic Hindsight. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and join us next week when we talk about a president again.